Hey guys, this is Karen from Blue Rooster Farm, and in today's video I'm going to share with you how I render down pork fat and make our own lard. Now it's not a hard thing to do, and in fact it's really quite simple. As long as you're just around the house, you can keep an eye on it and get it done really quickly. Within about 4 hours or so you'll have lots of jars full of fresh lard. So the first thing that I do is I wash my jars really good in hot sudsy water. Now I keep my lard in the freezer because it prolongs its freshness. Lard is shelf stable, but it doesn't have as long of a shelf life if it's just sitting on a shelf. And I keep mine for about a year. The lard that I have now is a year and maybe even a couple months old, and it's still perfectly good. We have 1/4 of a cup left basically of our last batch of lard, and I made that probably a year and 2 or 3 months ago. So it's been a while since I've made it, and I'm hoping that this lard will last us about a year as well. And we used to go through it a lot quicker when the boys were home, but now it's just the two of us, and I just don't do as much baking. Now I prefer lard over shortening, number one, because it's healthier for you, and number two, because it's cheaper to make my own lard than to purchase it at the grocery stores. You've probably noticed the prices of oils and shortenings and lards in the grocery store has really increased in the past year or two. And so whenever you can make your own for cheaper, why not? Now, like I said, we're going to be keeping our lard in the freezer. If I were keeping it on the shelf, I really think I would probably be sterilizing my jars just to make sure that they were sanitized well and I wasn't bringing any bacteria into the lard. So I've never kept them on the shelf. So before doing that, if you're keeping yours on a shelf, you might want to do some research into that. But this is going to go in the freezer, and what I usually do is I will have a jar in the refrigerator, so when I'm baking, if I need some, it's right there. And then once that jar is gone, I go get a jar out of the freezer and put it in the refrigerator. So I keep it chilled all the time. And if it's too cold to use, I'll just set it out for an hour or so and it will warm up to room temperature. But usually it's not a problem from the refrigerator. Now I use my lard mostly for baking, things like cookies and pastries and cakes and things like that. You can also use it for frying. I'll use it like if I need a little fat in the pan, if I'm sauteing vegetables or something, things like that. We don't do a lot of fried foods, so I don't use it for frying that often, but you certainly could. But you might notice that I have lids that already say lard on them, and those are the lids that we always use and the jars that we always use. And those are just old Smucker's peanut butter jars. We used to buy our peanut butter in those large jars, and we just kept the jars, and it's great for freezing in. Just be careful, you don't want to break them. But I just put the word lard on the lid just to make sure we knew what was in it. So now that we've got the jars all clean, we are ready to make our lard. So I have here 2 packages of pork fat. Now I purchased this and it was $1 a pound. There's 4 pounds in each package. So for 2 of these packages altogether, it's costing me $8 to make all of the lard that I'm going to be making today. Now normally when I buy a pork fat, it's not ground already. This just happened to be ground, and I thought, well, that's going to save me a big step. If I buy it chunked up from the butcher, what I do is I bring it home, I trim it down so that there's none of the red pieces or pieces with meat or any kind of blemishes. I just trim all that stuff off, and that goes to the animals. And then I will put it through our KitchenAid grinder. because when I grind it, it seems to melt down a lot faster. Once it's all ground up, then I put it in the crock pots like I have here, and that's what I've got right here. I've just put that one in. I had these in the freezer for a couple of weeks because I wasn't ready to make it yet, and I took it out a couple of days ago and it's been in the refrigerator, and I like to just cut it into smaller pieces so that it'll melt quicker. If I have it in one big clump, it will have a hard time melting. So I just split it up, and that way it will melt down a lot quicker. Now, if I don't grind it, what I'll do is I'll cut it into smaller pieces, just because when it's in smaller pieces, it will render down faster. And if you can render it down quicker, you don't have the darkening of the lard that sometimes you will get when you have to cook it for a longer period of time. And I like to have my lard nice and white. And here's our second bag, and this one is also 4 pounds. So we're going to get it out and into the crock pot as well. Again, altogether I have about 8 pounds of fat, and when all is rendered down, I think I'll be getting at least 7.5 pounds of lard. And I'm thinking that will be about £1 a jar, if I remember correctly. So we're going to get this one cut up, and then we're going to get these crock pots going. Now I have 2 slow cookers here. The one on the right gets a lot hotter, and so that one I'm going to have to watch pretty carefully because I don't want to overcook it. The one on the left right there, it's a little bit lower temperature when it's cooking, and it's probably more accurate to most slow cookers. But the one on the right, for some reason, has always been quite hot on high. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start these out on high just to kind of get things warmed up, and then turn them down. I'll probably only have them on high, at least the one on the left, probably for 30 minutes. And then the one on the right, I'll just kind of keep an eye on it for the first 30 minutes and see if I need to turn it down to low. But after about 30 minutes, I'll turn them both down to low, and then I'll just keep coming back and checking. Now, why you want to check is because as soon as you have the fat melted, you want to go ahead and remove it from the pan. That way it doesn't overcook. And you just want to keep removing anything that's melted and put it into the jars and let the rest of it cook. That way you will not have, in my experience, the darkened lard. Now this is about, I think, 45 minutes to an hour after it's been cooking, and you can see how it's changed its appearance totally. It's really melted down. It's kind of more of a tannish color, and it's perfect. It's doing just perfect. The one crock pot does not have a lid. I broke that a couple months ago, and so if I use it, I have to just put aluminum foil over it, but it works. So anyway, that one you can see right there, it's looking pretty good. It's looking pretty good. Now you do want the temperature of your melted fat to be 140 degrees. That makes sure that it's fully cooked. So I'm just mixing these up, not removing anything yet because it's not separated like it should be just yet. So I'll be putting the lids back on and then probably checking them in another 30 minutes or so. And so there's what it looks like. And it's looking good. And you can see how those little pieces from the grinding it are still intact. Okay, here is about an hour after we've started it. And I've got my thermometer right there, and I just want to see what the temperature is. And I'm using a meat thermometer, a candy thermometer, a meat thermometer. Anything that will register 140 degrees will be fine. And so this one right here isn't quite ready. So we'll just put the lid on that one. And then let's go over and look at this one. This one right here is, you can see it's sizzling around the edges, so it's getting pretty hot. And around the edges, you noticed it was browning just a little bit, and so you kind of want to keep that from happening. It's perfectly fine right now, but you don't want it to cook where it's browning. And again, this gets hot. It's on low at this point. It's just the way this slow cooker is. So I put the thermometer in there. And this one looks like it is registering at 140 degrees now. So we can start putting this one into jars. So I'm just going to grab my jars, my strainer, my cheesecloth, and my ladle, and we'll be right back. I started ladling my fat into my jars, and then I realized the camera wasn't going, so I got the camera started again. And so all I'm doing is I have my strainer and then a couple of layers of cheesecloth on top, and I am just ladling the hot fat into the jars. Now, the reason I have the layers of cheesecloth is I'm trying to keep any impurities or anything out of my lard. I want this to be nice and clean. The strainer will keep from getting the large pieces out, but the cheesecloth really helps strain it out. And anytime I do get some of the pieces of fat in there that aren't melted down yet, I just scoop them back into the crock pot. That way the fat will continue to go through the cheesecloth easy enough. And I have found that if I take my larger strainer and just set it on the top of the fat in the crock pot, that it's easy for me just to get the liquid portion of the fat out and not have to worry about getting all of the chunky stuff in there too. And it just works out really nicely. You can see I just press down on that strainer and all of the liquid comes up and I can just easily scoop it. So I'm just starting this process. I'll get as much as I can out this time, and then I will let it cook some more. And then when there's enough in there for me to pull out and strain, I'll repeat this process. As you're watching this video, you probably are looking at the lard or the melted lard and thinking it's not very white. It isn't white right now because it's melted, but once it's cooled, you're going to see it is a nice and pretty white. At this point, I have added the contents of my other crock pot to this one. After I strained that first batch off, there wasn't as much left, and I thought, well, let me go ahead and pour all of this in one pot, and we'll just get this pot going, and I can get it done a little quicker. And we wouldn't be risking browning that whatever was in the pan before. So we're going to do another strain here. I've got, again, my strainer and my cheesecloth. And just making sure that we can see what's going on here. And then we start the process again. We just take our strainer and place it in the crock pot. And with our ladle, we just take out whatever liquid comes up to that surface, and we start straining. And I'm going to keep doing this until the only thing left in our crock pot are the cracklings. At this point, you can see that I have several jars that I have strained, and what's left is pretty much solids. I'm going to go ahead and render a little more fat off of this, and then I'm going to kind of press it into the sieve to strain the fat. And the fat in the last jar will probably be used more for savory dishes and not necessarily for cakes and pastries. And this is the end product. These are the cracklings. We're not going to save them to eat. A lot of people love to eat them. They're kind of like bacon, but you don't have the smoky flavor. We're going to give those to our pets. They'll love that. We have about 6 jars of lard. The last one is the darkest, and that's the one we'll use for our savory cooking. But let me show you what they look like when they're all cooled off. I think you'll be surprised. I refrigerated these jars overnight, and here is what they look like. This is the first one that we strained, and it goes in order to the last one. And as you can see, there's just a gradual darkening as we go by each jar. But they're all great. They're all good. People ask, well, can't you taste the porky flavor? And no, we can't. The last jar we might be able to, just because I pressed it through the sieve, but the other ones, they will work great in any pastry. I hope this video has encouraged you to give this a try. Again, it doesn't take a lot of time. You're going to save yourself some money, and you know that you're producing a healthier product than the shortening that comes off the grocery store shelves. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing. I would really appreciate it. Also, don't forget to like and share, and I hope to see you back here soon. Bye-bye.